And so, meanwhile, relief efforts attempting to get around the Israeli siege of Gaza have taken another tragic turn. A dozen Palestinians drowned attempting to get humanitarian aid. Let's roll a little bit of this news clip here.
As they spot a plane and the aid begins to drop, they run as fast as they can. It's the rush of a people so desperate, so hungry, who would do anything to feed their children, now on the brink of starvation. This is what survival in Gaza has come to, fighting for food. That little bit of aid that makes it into the north, where man-made famine now looms. People chase parachutes that fell into these choppy waters. It is desperation that drives them into the sea. What you're about to see next is disturbing. It's the reality of a war growing more cruel by the day. The fastest, the fittest emerged with boxes of American-issued meals ready to eat. Others didn't make it out alive. People gather around the thin, frail body of a man who drowned trying to reach that aid. 12 people drowned, according to paramedics.
Like, what are we doing to people? This is the airlift that is being carried out by the United States in collaboration with Jordan, and because the U.S. has refused to put pressure on the Israelis to get crossings through over land. You see videos every day now of trucks. People telling you can drive for like 45 minutes outside of Gaza and just see truck after truck after truck just sitting there idling, waiting to go through. If it gets through and they find, so the Israelis are searching these American aid trucks, which is insane. Like, think about that for a second. The implication there is that the U.S. is secretly smuggling in arms to Hamas. Mm-hmm. And our ally Israel needs to search all of these trucks to make sure that we're not arming Hamas. They, for instance, will find a tent pole because they've destroyed most of the infrastructure, so people are living outdoors. So humanitarian aid includes tents. But if a tent pole is too thick, they will turn the entire truck around. Everything in it has to then go back, and then it has to wait a certain number of days. So the airdrops are kind of this pretend effort that we're doing to suggest that we're not complicit in the genocide.
Do you know what we need?
What's that?
We need a pier.
A pier?
Yes.
Why don't they just build a pier? Yeah, because the problem apparently is that there aren't enough access points, and so we need one more access point. If we could just build a pier, maybe a floating one, and then things could come in unmolested from Cyprus.
We could send some contractors down there.
Some contractors, what could go wrong there?
It seems like a foolproof plan.
Yeah, and so the Cyprus is the launching point for this pier that we're building in Gaza, and Cyprus is now clogged just like every other port is. Like, the problem is not an inability to get things in physically. Like, there are plenty of ways that we could do it. Just Israel just simply won't allow it. And so this relates to these negotiations. The starvation in northern Gaza, which is turning into anarchy as Israel continues to kind of target civilian police forces there as well, and also continues to try to have its own presence in there, is blowing up the negotiations, according to Axios. You can put up this from Barak Ravid. He writes, the main issue that led to the impasse in the negotiations on the hostage deal was Hamas's demand for the full return of Palestinian residents to the northern Gaza Strip, what is known in IDF parlance as drainage between the south of the Gaza Strip to the north. This is what senior Israeli and American officials who live over the Gaza Strip have told me. And then he goes on. The next one, why this is important, a senior Israeli official said that the political level in Israel, and to a certain extent in the U.S., made a miscalculation regarding Hamas's position and the ability of the mediators to extract additional concessions from it, especially on the issue of returning to the northern strip. It seems rather indicative of Israeli intent here that allowing residents to return to the northern Gaza Strip is such a sticking point for Israel. What could we possibly draw from that other than that this looks to be a land grab?
Again, I mean, it's you have Netanyahu caught. We've talked about this all the time. Caught between a rock and a hard place with his own coalition. You have people who said, what happened after October 7th was the opportunity for Israel to make serious land incursions back into land that was given up, and to that would allow them to create more of a barrier, et cetera. Like this was the moment. And Netanyahu, who is obviously deeply opposed to any idea of a two-state solution, whereas Joe Biden is deeply committed to a two-state solution, and these are two people funding a war together, funding and allowing for war together. It's just, indicative, I think, of that too, that deeper problem for Netanyahu, the political dynamic in Israel too.
Now, let's talk about another factor in these negotiations that most Western news outlets don't talk about. And that is the question of why is it difficult? Why is Israel miscalculating Hamas's stubbornness on some of these negotiations? And if you follow a lot of the kind of local press about this, you realize that the war for the IDF is going very badly. From the air, it is true. They have been effectively able to raise most of the Gaza Strip. But on the ground, it's a much different story. So the IDF yesterday posted a rather extraordinary video. And this is kind of in response to the way that Hamas, since the very beginning, has been posting on Telegram and other channels regular updates from the street battles. And on a near daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. And they become iconic among people watching these wars. You've now got that little red carrot that kind of points down onto an IDF soldier before, say, an RPG is sent, or has become kind of the symbol of this war. And you'll see people say they're going to get a red carrot, like that, alluding to the fact they're going to wind up in one of these videos. Israel has barely ever put out any of its own videos, so they put one out yesterday, and I think it's instructive to take a look at. This is one from the Al Shifa complex. So this is a residential house, kind of within the kind of vicinity of the hospital. This is 7 IDF soldiers. They see a guy stick a muzzle out of a rifle out of a closet. Now all 7 of them take off. If you're not watching this, they kind of start shooting wildly at walls. It looks actually insanely dangerous. It looks like they're lucky that nobody died of friendly fire here. At the very end, the guy comes down the stairs. So this one guy has chased 7 people down several flights of stairs, and then as he's coming down the final flight of stairs, they strike him. 7 against 1, and they decided to post that. I asked Hind Qaudry, who's done some reporting for The Intercept, who is a reporter in Gaza, if she could find out who this was. There were some rumors that it was a police officer. There were some rumors that it was Fayek al-Mahmoud, who was killed by IDF forces. He was the kind of senior police commander in charge of making sure, coordinating with UNRWA and making sure aid could be distributed in a peaceful way. She said, no, it was not. We can put this up here. It was Omar al-Dadu from the al-Dadu family, who she confirmed was a fighter, not a police officer. Separately, our condolences to Hind. She posted this morning that both her uncle and her cousin were killed by Israel last night. So condolences to Hind and to her family for that added tragedy. But we also wanted to play, just for instance, we just randomly grabbed the most recent clip put up by the Qassam Brigades on their Telegram channel. So we can just roll this one here. This is the kind of thing they're posting absolutely constantly. So if you're not watching, if you're listening, this is an Israeli tank rolling through the rubble and gets hit by an RPG.
Yeah.
Just every day they're posting something like this. And you can only begin to imagine how horrifying it must be to be in one of those tanks.
Yeah.
Rolling through this rubble.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be in the tunnels, I'm sure, are terrifying too. But at least with a tunnel, you're looking that way and you're looking that way. Going through these bombed out hellscapes, everywhere around you could be an RPG any second. And then I think, and with the guy with a GoPro, and you're going to wind up on Telegram within a couple hours.
You know, you've done some really amazing coverage of how veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are using psychedelics for their PTSD. And in some of the interviews that we've done on this show with people, they talk about how that kind of warfare is a new kind of PTSD because it is so
Every second of it's terrifying.
It is, exactly. And so what you have here is this generation of men, obviously in Gaza, a generation of men in Israel who are embroiled in just the most horrifying, one of the most horrifying, I shouldn't say the most, but one of the most horrifying. War is always horrifying. That kind of war, there's a special trauma to it for sure.
Yeah, and there's a tendency toward kind of war porn among some folks, and so that's one reason we've showed very little of this footage throughout this entire conflict, because it's horrifying, and you don't want people leering or glorifying it in any kind of way. The reason we wanted to play it today is to make the political point that one of the reasons that Israel and the United States is having such a difficult time in these negotiations is that, yes, Israel is managing to push 2 million people to famine, 1 million of them children, but on the ground, they're not doing well in the actual fighting, which I think then gives the military wing of Hamas. The political wing of Hamas is a different question. The ones in Qatar who were trying to reach a deal is a different question. The military wing of Hamas has an incentive to keep this going. Because they're thinking, what are you going to do? Just keep sending tanks into the line of fire of our RPGs?
It's like the Houthis.
They're like $7 RPGs.
Their incentives are completely different than this like big modern military's incentives. Yeah, absolutely. And the point that I mentioned earlier about David Brooks's "What would you have Israel do" column, and I know we disagree with this, but in the macro sense, I think that point is really well taken. In the micro sense, though, it's like these various examples, case studies from the warfare, you just take a step back and you think, in service of what? So like in service of Joe Biden's goal for the day after, in service of Netanyahu's goal for the day after, in service of Smotrik's goal for the day after, what's the plan? I mean, what's the plan? It's been an incredible several months to watch the floundering on that point. And
to wrap up this block, we can put up A4, which I had skipped over. This is the Jerusalem Post article that says Gallant's Washington. So this is about Yoav Gallant's coming trip to the United States, trying to head off an arms embargo. And it's an interview that was done on Israeli radio with IDF Major General Nimrod Schaefer, who says, just straight up in this article, go read the whole thing for yourself, that if the United States tells Israel not to do an invasion of Rafah, Israel will not do one. That it's just that simple. That there are, and he goes into, he just says, look, Bibi's saying this for political reasons. This is just red meat for his base. He said there is no world in which Israel is doing this without the support of the United States. And he said they have other ways of cutting off weapons. They don't have to publicly say we're cutting off weapons. What he describes it as kind of a process on a spectrum that you're like, hey, what's up with that ammunition? Where's that shipment? And you just hear back from the U.S. It's caught up in paperwork. Like we're working on it, and it just doesn't come. And then there doesn't have to be kind of Biden and Bibi having a titanic clash over weapons publicly, but privately they don't get the weapons that they need. So that means that if Israel does go into Rafah, it means the United States supported that invasion, kind of no matter what they say publicly. This is according to Nimrod Schaefer.
Interesting.
Nimrod, great name.
Yeah, not ideal, not ideal.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.